All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday. Whether you're watching it live or you're watching it later after the fact, in either case, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday for This Week in Review, the show in which we give you the rundown of the goings on in the entertainment industry. We know that you're busy, so we try to do our best to catch you up on the goings on in entertainment, whether it's from sports to business, entertainment news, or should say entertainment business, film and television, and the like. Of course, I'm not going to be alone in talking about all these, various stories that have happened in the past week. So let me bring on Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Ho! This week I'm Spiller Claus, baby. That's right. Happy Hanukkah. We're coming to the end of the Hanukkah season. We're about to get into this Christmas time, sleigh bells and holly and all that. So hopefully you and yours are, doing well. And, you can catch that holiday spirit and spread joy to all mankind. Um,
Indeed.
yeah.
Indeed. So, what you probably saw in the title is that we will be going over, seeing that it is the holidays, or we're getting close to the holidays. We'll be going over our top respective 5 holiday films. So, be on lock as we go into that towards the end of our show. We'd like to know what some of your top fives are. Maybe you agree with us on what some of those top fives are. Maybe you disagree. For the case, drop it down there in the comments of which ones you figure are your best 5 or your top 5. But with that out of the way, let's get into our first segment of our show and talking about what's happened in the world of sports. And there's quite a bit that's gone down over the past week. So I will put it up now. Had a couple of things that happened this week, whether it was with VA officials and the Wiz Cap owner coming to an agreement, a $2 billion agreement, if you will, to bring both of the teams to Virginia. We have Draymond Green, of course, having being on an indefinite suspension. And then also we had Uninterrupted, top class trailer premiere date. I wanted to bring that up for you, Spills. I know how
Oh,
much
yes, you know.
Uber LeBron fan you are, and
Mm.
what better way to do it than to also do a show on his son. So there you go. But be that as it may, I want to punt the ball over to you, so to speak. Of sharing your thoughts on what on the topics that we have today, whether it's with what we have locally with our 2 sports teams, the issue with Draymond Green. As people know, I love the Warriors,
Oh yeah, they be
but
cheating. Y'all be cheating.
I'm objective when we have issues with the team. So objectively, I have my thoughts on it, but I'll punt it over to you as well as what we have with the upcoming premiere with the show. Go for it.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna start with the show first because I have that we're not gonna talk too much about the show. Um, but I will say that Sierra Canyon obviously is a school that LeBron's son goes to, Bryce. And I've always said that I thought that Bryce was the better of the two sons. Unfortunately, I like Bronny. He's a bit of a tweener. He's a, point guard size, but he's got shooting guard skills per se. And I don't feel like Bronny. I feel like Bronny is not as good as Bryce. Bryce is a little bit taller. He plays more like his dad did in high school compared to like historical videos and stuff, and the way that their games flow and everything. So I'm interested in that. Obviously, this is a little bit more about Bronny before he went to school, but I still think that Bryce is the better player. Moving on to the Wizards and the Capitals leaving town. Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that Brandon and I have talked previously on this show specifically about the Chinatown corridor and how there's a lot of vacant businesses down there and stuff since the pandemic. If this actually goes through, I know that they said they agreed on the deal. But there have been some clues that there are people in the public that don't really want this stadium to move um, to Crystal City because there's not really infrastructure for it. If you look here, there's only one way to get into the stadium. It's on Route 1, so that would make it a lot more difficult. The least traveled train station in the DC system, the metro system, is actually the Crystal City um, exit, which is very surprising. You wouldn't expect that. Just looking at this and seeing how they're doing everything, I don't know if that's the best idea. I know it will destroy the downtown here in the District of Columbia. So I think that hopefully they can renegotiate and keep the team in the city because the city does really need the team. I went to a game actually last night. I went to see the Pacers get destroyed by the Wizards for the first time. Um, they won their fourth game this year, which is crazy when you think about it. But I just think it's crazy that um, team owners can put out a subpar product for years, like 4 years, because the Wizards have been. We could talk about this. The Wizards have been an abysmal franchise for years. For him to be able to just move the stadium because he doesn't like what the revenue cut is or whatever his issue is with the city, when he's not even putting a viable product on the field, there's arguments to be even made that the Capitals have won a championship under his tutelage, but Ovi is one of the 5 or 10 best players in NHL history. He should have won more than one championship. So that I think we should save this Draymond part till you get a little bit out. I want you to get something out about these two teams so that we can have a real focus on Draymond. How do you feel about that, Brandon?
I like it. I like it. Okay.
All right,
Okay.
cool.
I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing here. But in talking, sharing what you had to say about those two stories before we hop into, of course, the Draymond of it all. I'll go first into the deal in which you were talking about, and a lot of it you touched on already. In that, unfortunate, and to be more specific, the idea is to have the two teams, from what I understand, to go to Potomac Yard. Um, and while I do understand how that could benefit, obviously, that area, now that they have a new subway stop, it's a bummer that they now all of a sudden have a subway stop when I feel like they could have benefited from having a subway stop years ago. All my people out
No,
here
for sure, for sure.
who are from DC and know how, like, back in the heyday when you had a movie theater there and you had all of that there, man, like, it would have been so convenient to have a subway stop there instead of having to go from Crystal City and then either walk up to Potomac Yards or catch a bus just to get yourself up to the mall. But I digress. There are a lot of pieces to this in that, and as I said, some of it you touched on before is how it affects the DC area. I'm aware, and they talked about in the story, and this is from News 4, of how there has been an uptick of crime. However, even with the uptick of crime, while I understand how that can bring a negative impact onto that area, and attracting people to that area, it's not going to do the area any favors by moving that landmark out of that area. And in thinking of a lot of the businesses that are surrounding the arena that benefit from the foot traffic that the arena provides, it's unfortunate to have this be be something that could go through. And as you said, there is an agreement that has been made, so it's getting further and further into that reality. Hopefully something happens in that time that can officially change things, but at least as it stands right now, it looks like that's the direction that things are going. So yeah, like I guess with that, I just think of that, and then we've talked about this offline, but also just the idea of who's going to get displaced. I mean, a lot of people talk about this, don't really think about this too often. Who's going to be displaced in terms of being able to accommodate these new facilities, these new buildings that are going to take over that area? Because I'll pull up. Let me see if I can bring up the article itself. And again, this is from News 4, so shout out to them. They have a breakdown of what that area is going to look like, and for all intents and purposes, here I was thinking, I was like, I was trying to picture how the Potomac Yard is as it stands, and how they'd be able to fit a sports facility there. But in essence, they're basically tearing down that entire mall complex, parking lot, all of that, in order to accommodate the arena and all the facilities that they're trying to place there. So give me 1 second. I'm going to try to see if I can pull this up for you guys and share it, in which they give us a look at what that facility for all intents and purposes is going to look like. Okay, I found it. So I'm going to share it now. Let's see here. Here we go. All right, so all right, here we go. So I'm gonna pull it up now, and this is what it is intended to look like. And I'm trying to see if I can get it a little bigger for you guys. But I mean, even if we're looking in this general vicinity, you have on the top right, you have where the subways is pictured to be, and in blue, you have Target, you have all of those shopping centers right there. That, for all intents and purposes, that entire area that has, if we're picturing restaurants, if we're picturing grocery stores, all of those things are going to, be gone in order to be able to accommodate these facilities. And don't get me wrong, if I recall, help me out, Spillman, I think there is a Giant over there, so maybe the Giant will be able to still stay. I want to say it's either Giant or Safeway, but
I think it's one of the two. Yeah.
Yeah, it's either one of those two. Anyone can, if you have a call, I'm brain farting on right now, you can drop it off in the comments. But at least for all the places that are here, I mean, you're also considering, Best Buy, Sports Authority, like all of those places, you have them over here. And if you have all of these residential areas that rely upon coming to these areas to be able to do their shopping, that has a drastic impact. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people are going to say, yeah, well, you have, Pentagon City, but like, some people may have a preference over being able to get their goods here versus someplace else. And yes, while there are some sports places in the mall of Pentagon City, there's a big difference between that and being able to go to a sports authority, to be able to go to a legit, a sporting store like that. So now we can hop into the second part, and that's getting into uninterrupted. So with that, I agree with you wholeheartedly that while Bronny is, a solid player,
He ain't making that league though.
I'm not going to say that because, all things considered, I feel like he's a better shooter than his father is. And he still has some of those intangibles that his father has as well. However, in terms of the upside and what you are seeing in terms of his size and his versatility, I definitely agree with you that Bryce, I feel, is going to be the higher prospect in terms of versatility wise, where you can place him on the floor. And if we're talking about Bronny, logically, like I feel like he could only be that 1 or 2 guard, and maybe
Right.
in a rare circumstance you could place him at a 3. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I would say he's still in that 1 or 2 category based on his size and what a prototypical NBA guard is. So I definitely agree with you that Bryce is the cooler, or the seems like the most logical prospect between the two, who may have a higher ceiling, if you will.
Hmm.
So with that, I mean, I'm still interested to see the show and see, because it's going to be talking about that year that Bronny had of trying to make a comeback, if you will, of not, from what I understand, getting that state title, and that whole process of him being recruited by USC and all of that. I'm also interested to see how some other things may play into that, like such as his health. You know,
Yeah, that's a real
that came into play. So I'm curious to see how much they're going to talk on that, and how open they are going to be on that matter of what transpired, of him being hospitalized, of that health issue that he had. So I'll be interested in seeing it, and let me know, Spills, because I'm potentially thinking about doing a recap or review of this season, of this upcoming season. Is going to be premiering in January. So yeah, it may be an opportunity. Maybe if there's some interest from you guys out there of us doing a rundown of that show, let us know. But I'm still pondering, or still thinking about it, of potentially doing, as we do with a lot of our other series on. Now, hopping into, as I said, the Draymond Green of it all.
oh yeah.
So Draymond, as I said, suspended indefinitely, based off of a recent matter that he had, playing against the Suns, of punch on the players. It's just like, I don't know what to say at this point. Like, while I understand the I wholeheartedly agree on, or I understand what the thought process is in suspending indefinitely, because, like, you're trying to make a statement of this won't be tolerated, while at the same time you're still trying to figure out a logical punishment for this behavior. And as I said, like, the Warriors are my team, but at the same time, objectively, anyone who's a Warriors fan knows that as good as Draymond Green is as a defensive player, on top of that, you have all of these. I hate to say it, and I hate to make him into a verb. You have all these Rodman-esque moments throughout his career where he's doing all of this stuff, and you're shaking your head like, "What are you doing? Like what's going on?" Like I understand that you're trying to bring intensity and all that, and we appreciate that as fans of the team. But, like, all of this other stuff that you're doing is unnecessary, and add this to what happened earlier in the year with the choking of
Oh, the choking, ladies and gentlemen, the choking.
I'm brain fart. It was a Gobert, correct? If I recall.
That was Rudy. That
So
was Big Rudy.
I'm just at a loss. Like, I just don't understand, like, sometimes what's, like, going on, like, through his head of, what do you feel? And I've listened to, and I've had a lot of people have seen it, in the clip of him explaining that it was involuntary, but, like, I've looked at it replay after replay, and I'm sorry, like, I try to be as understanding and see every perspective possible, but it still seemed like There's no way that you could swing around like that and accent. I don't know. It didn't seem accidental to me. So I don't know. Your thoughts? Like I said, I try to be objective, and this is my team, but at the same time, like when you're doing ridiculous stuff, it still has to be talked about.
Well, I think that, first we're going to call these what these are. These are antics. Draymond is the king of antics. And I think that, as a Warriors fan, you got to be real with yourself. He's cost y'all a championship. Like, think about it this way.
What year was that? When it was against LeBron?
2016.
Yeah,
2016.
in Game 5. He got
He
suspended.
brain farted and lost y'all. But, like, he should have got suspended in the other series, in the Thunder series, but they let him slide. So, like, to me, it's like all these antics over the years are just too much. Like, I get that they're Rodman-esque, and as a more defensive-minded basketball player in my time, I understand that sometimes you got to do stuff to get an edge. But I think that this is just it's increased because Draymond is losing his powers, as you were. Like, he's not. Like, I've always argued with people that Draymond is one of the top 5 power forwards in the NBA and has been for a long time. People would look at his like stat line and be like, but he only scores like 9 points a game.
Yeah,
And people
I understand.
but I'll be like, but Draymond is the point guard of the Wizards. Like, he's not just he's a distributor. Like, I know Steph plays point guard, but realistically, that's the thing that really like changed between the Warriors of Mark Jackson and the Steve Kerr super successful, unbeatable world beater Warriors is that they kind of got Draymond playing like a version of Magic Johnson basketball. Like, I can imagine if Magic Johnson was up to date, he'd play better than Draymond, obviously, because Magic Johnson is much more talented than Draymond. But for sure, their games very much are similar. The distribution stuff. Draymond plays better defense than Magic, so they have those two differences. But like, to me, it's just crazy. I just don't. I wish we weren't living in a world where we always have to give people the benefit of the doubt, because like there's some things that people say that it's like, obviously you're saying this because you have to say it, but for us to just believe it is just like, he's saying he doesn't have control over his body, even though he's a professional athlete who gets paid millions and millions of dollars to have control of his body. Like, it's literally what he gets paid to do. Like, he's regimented. He's been doing it for 20 years. He's been playing basketball for 20 years. Not professionally, obviously, but you have to get to a point to play professionally. He played 4 years in college. And he didn't do this kind of stuff in college. So it's kind of like, it's just the antics and stuff. And I saw a clip where Rasheed Wallace was saying that Draymond would always be in their locker room when he was a kid. And that's kind of where he got some of his influence. So even though, Rasheed and them weren't really fighting, except for that one time they was fighting. But they weren't really cheap shot artists like Draymond is. And I think like, kicking people into pills and stuff. Like, come on, Draymond, what are you doing, man? You cost your team another chance. Like, so for sure, I think, are you ready to pack it this season up? Like, since Draymond is indefinitely suspended, like, could you see him? How long do you think this suspension is going to last?
See, that part I don't know. They may very well. I know, like in recent stories, they're saying that it may just carry out towards the end of this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if they carry it on throughout up through like All-Star Weekend. Or they may even go as drastic as like having to go up through the regular season. And like his first game back is in the playoffs. So like it is really hard to say. Like I say, I understand the reason why you would feel the need just to say indefinitely, because you're just trying to take a breather. You're trying to figure out, okay, what's the best course of action, and just to quickly just give a number of games, I don't think is going to be adequate enough based off of. I can see if you have a player who here and there have those moments, but like it just seems like it's just escalating where it's just like every single time recently that you've been hearing about Draymond Green, you're like, damn, what's going on now? Like what's happening this time? So it's unfortunate because, as you said, like Draymond Green is key to the Warriors and any success they have going forward with the squad that they have in the era that we're currently in with the Warriors. And it's also unfortunate because Steph Curry is having a great year, and to have that get wasted by like not having, having all the team, with all of its players is unfortunate as well. I mean, because let's be honest, like as it stands now, we're already unhealthy as it stands now, and to add something else to that by having Draymond Green taken out of that equation, just adds further issues. I mean, the glass half full part of it is that it'll force Kerr to extend himself outside of his typical rotation, and it'll give minutes to some players to be able to be effective parts of their rotation going forward into the future. And then I guess the other part of it too is, when thinking of the glass half full part, is that in thinking of your Lakers, I'm gonna use your Lakers as an example. In talking about their trade, prior to Westbrook, and you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. I don't know how objective you are. Is like they really made a turn in the right direction once they got once they made that trade with the rotation and squad of players that they got for Westbrook. And by the end of it, I remember at the beginning of the year, they were talking about, okay, are we going to even be, a playoff team? We're going to be a playing team. And then by the end of it, getting all the way to the Western Conference Finals. So
we got all the way where, Brandon? Where did we get last year?
You got to the Western Conference Finals. You did.
We got to the Western Conference. We didn't win the Western Conference Finals, so I can't be so happy. We
no,
could have handled it better.
You didn't.
But
we
also recently won the in-season tournament, ladies and gentlemen.
So, like, in thinking of like how things can drastically change over the course of a season, how different things, the landscape of the NBA can change with injuries and things that can affect the team, and we have a team that's at the top of the NBA, and then because of injuries by the end of it, they are at the bottom half of the NBA. So much can happen over the course of a long NBA season. I'm still optimistic that things can still come together. Will they win a title? That part I'm not sure about. But will they have an opportunity to potentially still make a run in the playoffs? And then, as they're making a run in the playoffs, we'll see. Sure. I still think that it's still early enough in the season that they're still able to pull it off with the group that they have and the experience that they have.
Yep. So we'll see, ladies and gentlemen. We'll tune back in to see if Brandon's going to be crying about this basketball team, because he has not been happy this year so far. You see, he's been smiling through it. You see him smiling now. He's been smiling through it, but they have been a disappointment this year for the Warriors Nation. Unlike my Lakers have been playing pretty good. We lost last night, but we can't win every game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But getting into our gaming news, we've had a show that unfortunately will be no more, and that's none other than E3. This was shared on their social media, but you also have some further details elsewhere. One of the sources that we had was with the Washington Post. But yeah, they announced this over the course of this week that they will no longer be having the E3 show, which is unfortunate because I've never been to E3. Have you ever been to E3?
No, I've never been to E3. I've always been interested in it, but
Oh.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, so like I said, E3 is was a great platform. I think, with the plusification of everything, where everybody has to put on their own con or their own big presentation of what they're producing, the necessity of a show like E3 has waned in years, because obviously it used to be where they would debut new games or new consoles or new. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
here.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I was getting a call in. Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, sorry about that. So, yeah, I like E3. It's sad to see it go. It's something that stood out in my head. It says 1995 here when it started. Definitely something that stood out in my head in the PlayStation era. Something that a lot of the PlayStation stuff was debuted. I think I remember back when they did that teaser for the first HD Final Fantasy was at E3. And also, we talked about this when I began at this podcast, if I remember correctly. We were talking about E3 and how it was canceled and how some of the things have changed. So sad to see it go, but this is the way that things are going with these media products. How do you feel about it, Brandon?
So just to go down the kind of give you guys my history with E3, if you want to call it a history, is in the same way that I'd always had it on my bucket list of being able to go to San Diego Comic-Con. E3 was on that list as well. I remember. I'm going to really age myself of how far things go back. In talking about, what is it, G4? Anyone remembers those G4 days of having that gaming channel and all the shows that used to be a part of it, like Attack of the Show and X Play and all of those different shows. Being able to kind of get a glimpse of what the show was like, of how massive it was, and just to have. And don't get me wrong, I mean, we do have some shows, especially here in DC, in the DC metropolitan area, that are gaming related, but nowhere near at the capacity or the scope of E3. And so it was always on a bucket list of mine to be able to attend. And you know, if it was any year that I would have been able to attend, it's unfortunate. It would have been during the pandemic, and we all know what happened during that time. But so much has changed, and they talk about it in the in that story with Washington Post. And I agree with it. And this goes with not just their show, but arguably just with conventions in general, especially with Comic Cons. As much as I love those types of shows, is that we're in a day and age now where it's far more cost effective for a lot of these companies to basically promote or to do publicity directly to the masses versus using a show as a platform to do so. These days, and I mean, we've seen it like recently with, I know you were talking about, I want to say it was last week's Spills of GTA, the new GTA game, and how, just showing that teaser, the amount of views that they got on that, was a way more publicity, and they didn't have to show it at a show. All they had to do was post it online, and that was it.
Right.
If they wanted to, they could do a featurette. They call them featurettes when you're trying to do those behind the scenes, segments. They could, create a featurette of their own and just post it, create a YouTube channel for themselves, and post it on their own without having to deal with all the logistics that go into doing a show. And a lot of people don't really understand because they're not on the other side of those shows. The budget that they have to spend, bringing promotional materials, bringing posters, bringing large banners of their company and of the game, bringing talent. Whether it's the developers, whether it's the voice actors, bringing them to the show, paying for the lodging, with the person who you're bringing to promote that show, whether it's hotels, whether it's, flights, that stuff adds up versus, okay, I don't need to do all of that. I'll create a YouTube channel. That doesn't cost me anything. And I'll just put up, I'll tape some segments with some of the talent. I'll put that up there and add that a part of the featurette. Done deal. People will watch that. I don't need to promote it. I don't need to send it anywhere. I don't need to pay for all of these other expenditures in order to be able to promote the show. And similar things are happening now, even with Comic-Con, where, you're seeing a lot of IPs promoting having a show of their own, which is what we're touching on just now, Spillman, in that it's far more cost effective to do that than to kind of get swallowed up by the news cycle of other things to compete with, when you can have your own show that's just promoting your stuff. Makes more sense. So I guess in this day and age, while it's a bummer because I've always wanted to go to E3 and now I'll never get a chance to go, I do understand how the landscape has changed, where there really isn't, as fun as it would be to go to E3, there isn't really much of a need to do a show like that anymore, especially in the world of gaming, where a lot of companies can self-promote on their own. I don't know what your thoughts or further opinions on that are.
I think that they can self-promote on their own, but I just think, with COVID, with everything that happened during COVID, I feel like COVID really reset the market on a lot of this stuff, where people were like, we don't need to do logistics anymore. Like, if people don't have to come in the office, why do we have to go to a conference hall and do audio visual stuff and all that just to announce a 30-second clip of something? Like, it's not like, it's not even like it's something like a physical product. It's something that people will absorb on their phones anyway. So let me back up here. All right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. All right, yeah. So I just think it's really interesting that E3 is closing. They've done so much to make this space and make the opportunity for these companies to be able to produce it, but unfortunately, things get eaten by the internet all the time, and I think this has always been an interesting thing about our economy now, because there's so many things that we think that are everlasting brands or world-beating things that just die sometimes because they reach the point where their usefulness is just not here anymore, and it's very interesting to see. I'm sure that the promoters and creators of it are sad to see it go. I'm sure they put a lot of work and everything into it, but it just, we're just happy to see it go. It's sad to see it go, not happy to see it go, but happy that we have so much time with E3, and like you said, one of those bucket list kind of things, like for nerddom or video game fans everywhere. But yeah, what else do you got, Mr. Brandon? Oh, so we've got a little bit of tech. There you go. There you go. There you go.
All right. So we did have some unfortunate news happen this week, and that was the passing of actor Andre Braugher, passing away at 61. And many folks, if you are familiar with Mr. Braugher, you'll probably recognize him from shows such as Homicide, Life on the Street, and of course Brooklyn Nine-Nine. However, he also made his film role debut alongside Matthew Broderick and Denzel Washington in Glory, where he had an outstanding performance, and even among the impressive ensemble in that film, secured a memorable role for himself and what he brought to that character. I know a lot of times we often say how unfortunate it is to have a lot of actors that we appreciate their work pass away. However, in this case, it's a little more personal in that I actually, believe it or not, had an opportunity to work with Mr. Braugher way back in the day. If you don't know too much about, myself, I did a little bit of acting, when I was a youngster, and during that time, was fortunate to do a short film with Mr. Braugher called Louisville back in, aging myself in '97. So the time, that I had an opportunity, to work with Mr. Braugher, he was, it was really incredible to see him work in terms of like his process and even in terms of the process that he had as an actor. You could tell that he was, serious about his work and uh, intense in a good way about what his what he brought, the intensity that he brought to his characters. Even amongst all of that, he was a very open person. He was a very nice person. Um, as a scene partner, because he played my father in that short film, being able to be collaborative with the scene partner, so that way you could establish that chemistry, so that way on screen it looks real, it feels realistic in terms of the relationship that you have between those two characters of father and son. So it was very, very memorable, and I'll definitely never forget it. Um, it's a bummer, like to have him not with us anymore, and 61 this day and age is, I know a lot of people say yes, old. That's not old. Like in the day and age and the technology that we have, like that's still a relatively young of having one's life in. But in terms of his legacy and the the tapestry of what he has done in his career, both in film and TV, is unprecedented. So rest in peace to Andre Braugher. I'll put it over to you briefly, Spillman, but I just wanted to, be able to share that, because as I said, a lot of times, we're saying, oh, it's a bummer, we were a fan of this, but in this case, I can actually say I had an opportunity to work, with the late artists that we have here.
Excuse me. All right. Yes. Andre Braugher, great television and film actor. I've liked some of his work. Obviously, he's really successful on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That was a great show. People love it. It's always memed on the internet. I think it's one of the most meme shows. He was good on what was that show that he was on? That cop show. He was good on the cop show. I think it's like Homicide or something like that.
Homicide.
Yeah, that was a good cop show. It was like non. It was like a real life cop show, and like they had episodes where they didn't solve murders and stuff, and like that's not the TV formula for cop shows. Cop shows usually are just like if you are you start the show, bad guy, scene one, scene two, conflict, scene three, they lock the bad guy up, and everything's happy and all the problems are solved. But that was not the show that he was on. So he was a great actor. Again, like you said, 61 is a very young age, but unfortunately for us black men, we die a lot at this age, in those age cohorts. I believe Lance Reddick, he died at 61 too, right? Or very close to that age. So we just got to be careful with our health, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all got to take care of yourselves, take care of each other. If you're getting that call for that one of those kind of things, go to the doctor. Like I know that's hard for a lot of people to do, but we got to take care of ourselves for our loved ones and for all the people around us. I don't really have much else to say. I think you touched on everything basically about this, and you do have a little bit more expertise with him as you were a scene partner. So, condolences to you, because I'm sure that was the time you looked on fondly from your childhood. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. And as I said, I look back on it now in that, in terms of the process, at least when I was actively doing a lot of acting stuff as a youngster, and I probably underestimated how much I really did observe and take in of what what his process was as an actor, and what I actually adopted myself when I when I was still actively doing a lot of that as a youngster. So a lot of times we always say, whenever you have kids around, make sure that you are setting that example. And a lot of times you really underestimate how much, when you have kids that look up to you, what they are watching, and making sure that you are setting the example for them. Whether you believe that they are observing everything or not. So um, all right. So on to a slightly lighter topic. We want to get into what we had with our title, and that's talking about our top holiday films. And just for the sake of time, we're going to do our top five. I'll welcome you, Spillman. If you like, you can do a honorable mention. I do have an honorable mention before I get to my number one. So, like right before hop into your number one, you're more than welcome to give your honorable mention and why. I have some criterias of why I've chosen the five that I have. It looks like we came to a tie on one of them, so I'll be interested to oh, hold on.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows which one. Everybody, we both pick. We are men of a certain age. We know what we like.
Yeah.
We know what we like, and I'm sure it's the same number for both of us too. So I'm gonna just
Yeah, absolutely. And being, just like you said, Spillman, being of a certain age, I welcome, like I said, all of you that are watching here, whether it's live right now or after the fact, to drop in the comments what your top five are and why. But this is what it is as it stands now. And who knows? As I get older, as things change, this may rotate. But yeah, as it stands now, these are my top five. And I'm going to put it over to you, Spillman, to do the honors first for your number five, sir.
all right. Number five, I've got Bad Santa. That's right. Bernie Mac, Billy Bob Thornton, John Ritter. Rest in peace to Bernie Mac and Billy Bob Thornton. One of the classic movies of all times. Um, the scene where John Ritter has to confront Billy Bob Thornton about certain liberties he's taking in the fitting rooms of the department store, and the just sheer uncomfortability that John Ritter had. It's just hilarious to me. I love that. It's such a good movie. I think the actor right here, his name is Caesar, I think, right? Isn't the guy's name Caesar or something like that? But oh my God, such a classic movie. Bernie Mac was classic in that movie. Um, Everything was just so funny. You know, um, I just this is just a classic. I don't know how you felt about this movie, but oh, number five, Bad Santa, so funny. So many scenes of just Santa just being bad, and the name belies how simple and hilarious it was, and I'm just so happy about it. What about your number five, Brandon?
My number five. So, I understand the appeal. I know for a lot of people, Bad Santa is on their top five. And trust me, I get it. Like, it is a funny film. Um, and the criteria that I had with my top five, I tried to think of, what makes a quintessential holiday film. Does it give you, all the feels, so to speak, of being in the Christmas spirit? Does it have a lot of those elements of uh, uh, fun? What other elements does it bring into play in addition to being a holiday film? Like, does it have to meld or try to put together different type of genres or styles? And then also, thinking of the ensemble, like the team that's behind it, and how you can have that much talent and be able to bring it all together and everyone to have their moment to shine, so to speak. So, with my number five is going to be the Muppets Christmas Carol. And talking about, yeah, believe it or not, the Muppets Christmas Carol, and talking about my childhood and you know the impact of watching as a kid. I remember going to that. As I'll age myself, I went to the movies to see the Muppets Christmas Carol as a youngster, as a kid, and it was great to have all of these familiar characters, to see them again in another lens of this story that a lot of people are familiar with, and what they did with their characters and how they fit certain Muppets into some of those roles that we are familiar with the Christmas Carol, the songs, of course, and then of course Michael Caine, aka Alfred. Of course, can't go wrong with Michael Caine. Of him coming in as Scrooge. So yeah, like the Muppets, The Christmas Carol is my number five. What's your number four, sir?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my number four is a hood classic. So many people love this movie. My top number four movie is, of course, Friday After Next. A great ensemble cast. It's the movie that debuted Cat Williams. I believe this is like the second movie or third movie that what's your boy's name? The muscle dude. What's that guy's name?
Terry
His
Crews.
Terry Crews. Yeah, Terry Crews. The solidified uh, Mike Epps, and just a classic movie. So many scenes on this movie. Just such a classic. Like I remember the scene when Money Mike got eaten up basically by Terry Crews when Cat Williams. That's just so silly.
Yeah.
That was a silly scene. Um, the scene, there's just so many silly scenes on that movie.
Terry Crews' mom, I do remember that. It's like
Terry
Terry.
Crews' mom saying, "Hey," I still say that to this day. I still say that. Hey, I say that to people all the time. Her talk about her mustache, saying somebody like it. The scene where John Witherspoon goes downstairs to get like paper towels or something, and then she pulls him in the house, and he's like, "Get off me, get off me, get off me!" And she tells him something nice about him, and he's like, "Oh, you heard that?" Just classic scenes. Just so many good scenes. Pimp in Distress, we have that in the lexicon. That's something that people say all the time. Top flight security in the world is things that I say to any lady that I know that works security. But yeah, just the classic, man. Friday After Next. What about you, Brandon? What's number four for you, buddy?
So for me, my number four is, and this was going into thinking about a lot of those criteria that we were talking about in terms of, yeah, we have a holiday film, but what else does it bring to the table? And with this next film, it really does a effective job of being able to marry not only the concept of a holiday film, but to bring in other genres. Like, you have elements of comedy, you have elements of horror, and so my number four is none other than the first Gremlins.
Oh yeah.
Can't go wrong with Gremlins. Of course, you have Gizmo, and you have the whole lore of their species, and what you're not supposed to do, of feeding them past midnight, and of course if you feed them past midnight, there's something dastardly or horrible will happen, or what we see in the background if you don't follow the rules of how you're supposed to care for these creatures. And in thinking of, it's that idea of being able to marry not only the backdrop of it being a holiday film, but to also have elements of, while it's not very gory, it still has some horror elements in it for sure. And for anyone who knows me, you'll know that, I enjoy horror films, and I feel like this film is very much can be for anyone who is, just tipping their toes, as a youngster into that genre, a gateway movie into becoming a fan of horror films. In
For
that
sure.
there's very much a lot of things in here that are pretty, in any other circumstance, if you really think about it, are pretty gruesome. There is a little bit of gore, but there's not necessarily gore in the way of things happening to human beings too much, more so with the gremlins themselves. So that's how they're able to get away with some of the stuff that's happening. But no, like, still at the end of the day, there's still that little peppering of horror, and there are some fun moments that are funny. Like, if you're picturing that dark sense of humor that this film has, you have that moment with, if you recall, where we have like the gremlins that are on the Christmas lights, and
Mm-hmm.
what's his name? God, I'm brain farting on his name. 80s star from Lost Boys. Uh, uh, Corey Feldman.
Mm-hmm.
He cuts those lights, and they're up there like hanging from like the Christmas trees, or you had the lady who was like the evil cat lady that had the wheelchair that was along the stairs,
Yep.
and the gremlins messed up the function of the chair, so she sped out. She sped up the stairs and out the window. Like, it's like so many moments, and then even thinking of the theme, like, and this is another thing that kind of films is there a theme that is memorable for this franchise? And mind you, we've only had two films, but when you hear that song or that musical cue, you recognize it. It's recognizable as a Gremlins theme, like like you know that theme, and it's immediately recognizable to you. So I don't know what your feelings are on it, and I did want to get into your number 4 in talking about Friday. I loved, I like that you had that option. My only feeling is, as much as while that particular installment of Friday After Next has a special place in my heart, because there are parts of it that I enjoy. Overall, as a franchise, Part 2 is always my favorite. So, like, because there's so many quotable things.
I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I
I
think
feel like 3 is the weakest of the 3. It's like, for me, it's 2, 1, and 3.
I don't know because I don't know because like there's the scene where Pinky gets mad when they hit the when they get the scene where Pinky like hit the little boy with the
Before that, is this with what is it, Michael Black? Is it Michael Blackson? I think.
Michael Blackson. No, Michael Blackson's in Friday after is in next Friday.
Oh no, I'm talking
That
about.
was
Okay, you're
yeah.
still talking about 3, but I was just talking
I'm
about
talking
the
about three.
scene
No,
of,
yeah. 2 was a good one. There's a lot of funny scenes in 2.
he brought back the scene. He was like, "Have you been chewing this or something?"
Very good.
or the cousin, she knowing about all
Baby
the
D.
snacks before they come
Yeah.
out. Or the dog, the neighbors. Man,
How
like,
he kept messing up his car all the movie. That's funny. But
so
I mean, I don't know. Like the idea of them being security guards and living together.
say it again. Say it again.
I don't know. He slapped his mother on the third movie. They said barbecue so good, make you want to slap your mama, and he literally slapped her. He was like, "Hey, mama," and he. And also Terry Crews. I feel like Terry Crews has been playing the character from Friday After Next since that movie's come out.
Yeah.
He's been that same character every single movie. A big, like, I'm big and I'm doing stuff and I'm towing that line of just like inappropriate. I don't know. And also Cat Williams has been playing the same character since that movie came out. So I don't know. Michael Black's has been playing the same character since next Friday. So, we'll see. I don't know. I think that 3 is better than 2.
Oh wow,
I
wow.
think 3 is better than 2 because
Hey,
I do like.
which one y'all think is better, three or two? My opinion, 2 is the best one out of the entire franchise. Don't get me wrong, there are parts of 3 that I like, but
Yeah,
I don't think it's as funny as 2.
I don't know. I think KB Albert is sexier than Donna was. Personally, I'm more a fan of KB Albert
Okay,
um,
okay.
than the girl in the other movie.
Yeah.
But both of them are not. Neither of them are Nia Long. So if we're being real,
No,
we know. We know. Yeah, your name's Nia Long. We know you're Nia Long. Yeah. So here's my number 3, ladies and gentlemen. Here's my number 3. So my number 3, we're going to a classic from the '80s. Since Brandon went for a classic from the '80s, I'm going with A Christmas Vacation with the Griswold family. Really a classic film. Obviously, a lot of these are Christmas movies, so not many of them are the first installments of them. But like the scene where they have the sledding is amazing. The scene I think where because they the scene with like the outhouse and stuff. I mean the septic tank backing up and they like um, just covered everybody in septic juice. It's just hilarious. So many good scenes. And then I forget this guy's name. Not the guy in the middle that was on Independence Day. What's the guy's name?
Randy Quaid.
And yeah. Randy Quaid is hilarious in these movies. And there's Chevy Chase, even though we all know people don't like Chevy Chase because he can be a lot. But these movies were hilarious. I love the Christmas movie, The Christmas Vacation. Um, that's one that like I think we didn't see it in theaters as kids, but my parents bought it for us as a Blockbuster video. And we liked the movie so much that we just rewound it and watched it again immediately, which is something that generally didn't happen when we were kids. Like, generally we'd watch a movie and be like, oh, that was great. We'll watch it again later. But no, we like immediately watch it over it like instantly. So that one shares a special place in my heart. I don't know how big a fan you were of the Vacation movies or Christmas Vacation, this installment, but just a great Christmas movie. How do you feel about it?
I mean, I remember a Christmas movie. I remember seeing it. I didn't see it in theaters. I remember seeing, after the fact, on video, and I think it was like on cable too, one of the other.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, in terms of talking about the film overall, I get why the appeal of it. In terms of what they had in that installment and what they were, what they've had, with the Christmas, like you said, Christmas Vacation. What is it? Is a summer one, if I recall, that I've seen bits of.
That's just Vacation. That's just
Oh, yeah.
Vacation. And then there's Euro Vacation.
The Euro one is one I haven't seen. I've seen bits and pieces of the prior one. I want to say in the summer, but like the Christmas one is the one that the only one that I've seen all the way through. And while
Hmm.
there are parts of it that like I get why the appeal of it was, I don't know, it just didn't hit for me. Like it's kind of like what you have, because I'm a big fan of, anyone who knows me, I'm a big fan of food. And a lot of times, you'll have, or if you're talking about a television show too, a lot of times, you'll have a lot of people that say, man, you got to check out this television show. Or you gotta try this particular meal that from this restaurant, and you have it, and you're like, okay, it's all right, but like it's not. You you try it a couple more times, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm just having an off day. Maybe it's just something that. But yeah, like while I understand the appeal of it, and there are parts of it that are funny, but some of the other films, based on what I'm comparing it to, that's coming, it didn't hit the same way. Um, so I'm sure, like for all the people that are dropping here in the comments, y'all probably thinking like, are you nuts? Like, that's definitely in my top 3. But for me, like, we're talking about holiday films. While it may be in a lot of people's, top films when it comes to the holidays of all time, not in mine. So, and I'm sure I'm probably gonna have some in this top 3, but you like, nah, that's not in my top 5, bro. Not my top 5. But I'm not gonna yuck your yum, man. I'm not gonna yuck your yum. If that's what you want, you got it. You got it.
I feel like I have a strong 1 and 2. I don't know what your 1 and 2 are. I feel like my 1 and 2 are undefeated.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair. That's fair.
I don't know. I don't know what your 3 is. So let's see what your 3 is, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see where Brandon's going with his number 3
Okay.
pick.
All right. So my 3, kind of similar to what we had with Gremlins. Again, this is another film where you have a lot of things, a lot of different aesthetics and styles that are meshing together, and somehow it works. And the fact that you are able to get away with some of the stuff that you kind of touch on based on what we're dealing with was impressive. And to still call it a kids film is also impressive. And that's none other than The Nightmare Before Christmas. So, Nightmare Before Christmas, again, aging myself, saw it in the theater when it came out in theaters. A lot of people, attribute it as a Tim Burton film. Fun trivia fact: it is not a Tim Burton film. His name was thrown on there to be able to promote the film, but he in fact did not direct it, as a lot of people may suspect. But still, be that as it may, with this film stop motion, that you have this film that tells the story of what was a Halloween Town, and that you have all of these kind of, I guess you can say, all of these universes based on different holidays, and you have this character who we see here, Jack Skeleton, who kind of becomes jaded with the idea of Halloween and kind of becomes bored of the idea of Halloween. So he, becomes enthralled with a different holiday of Christmas, and the chaos that ensues from him trying to bring to bring his own element or style of Christmas to the masses is like, the stuff, as I said, a lot of the stuff that they touch on with some of the characters, and what they were able, I feel like what they were able to get away with in this film, how dark it is, like thematically, is impressive considering that it's still under the guise of being like a kids film. There's so many, songs in here that are memorable. If you're picturing what's this, him, getting into that song, such an iconic song. Some of the other songs are iconic. This is Halloween. This is Halloween. La 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 la. All of those. They just immediately come to mind when you're thinking of this film. So, and also you can also picture the impact of it, because even with this film being, from the 90s, is nearly what, 30 years later, I want to say.
It's
Um,
over 30 years later. This is probably the 30th year. I think it came out in 93.
93, thank you. So yeah, 30 years later, of 30 plus years later, just that idea that even now it still has an impact. Like, if we're talking, I know you talk about cosplay a lot, Spillman. When you go to
Mm-hmm.
Comic Cons, these are one of the main IPs that are cosplayed all the time.
I'm gonna talk about this specific point. This is why I didn't pick this movie, or I'm not a huge fan of it, because I feel like all of the emo, hot topic type kids, this is their origin story to being the emo kids. Like, all the kids, who you remember, they used to have the sweep eyebrows and stuff, and was wearing white belts and stuff. All those emo dudes and emo girls with the people with the mascara and stuff. This started with The Nightmare Before Christmas. I feel like they used this movie to make a bunch of goth people. I don't know how people, like. I was always like, why y'all like Halloween so much that you making Christmas Halloween? I poo-poo that idea. I think Halloween is Halloween. Christmas is Christmas. We're not going to mix them two. They sell Christmas stuff at Halloween. They don't sell no Halloween stuff at Christmas. So I just, I love The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a great movie, great musical. I think that my list is lacking of musicals, so I will commend you on that because there's so much about singing in Christmas time that makes for a good movie, and I think that was a very good choice. But still, Tim Burton, I feel like once he did certain movies, he just kind of was like exploring that same theme over and over again. And I know we don't give people like Scorsese a hard time about it, but like for him, it's like he's painting up with the three color palette. He's not using all the rainbow. He used black, red, and white. Those are the colors he uses. So maybe some muted purples. He likes those colors too. But Tim Burton. Oh, and you just said Tim Burton's not in this, but it's so much about him personally. It's like, I just feel like even though he didn't direct it, it's just if it's homage or if it's a collaboration with him, it's still like it's got his DNA all over it. And it's just like it birthed so many styles, as you could say. It birthed so many like emo type things. I think it kept I don't think we'd still have claymation if it wasn't for this film. That probably would have been something that went to
I
the
don't agree with
wayside.
that. I don't agree with that because I mean we still have like the classic. What is it? The classic of films of like what is it, like Rudolph and like
Yeah, but that's from 40, 50 years ago. I'm talking about since this movie's come out, like they have still made claymation, like maybe the Wallace and Gromit franchise.
stop motion. Put it that way.
Yeah, stop motion. But this is what made stop motion to me stay alive because a lot of this stuff is too time consuming to do it when we have computers now because you can make computers that look like this claymation style, but because this movie was so successful, there's still people that are praying at the altar of stop motion filming, which is pretty impressive to me. So moving on to my number 2 movie. We know the movie. You know the movie. It's the greatest. It's the second greatest Christmas movie of all times. The second greatest Christmas movie of all times, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm gonna say before you hop into number 2, I will say this real quick, just as one final thought is I get where I understand, how you mean when you were talking about how it definitely inspired the entire movement. But
Yeah.
at the same time, again, I'll go back to the theme. I'm not going to yuck someone else's yum. If that's something that has inspired, an entire style, more power to you. But at the same time, too, like I get where you're coming from of saying that of trying to meld too much of Halloween into Christmas. But again, I felt that it brought another aesthetic that we don't commonly see with a holiday film. And again, the reason why I feel like the Halloween one was the one that was utilized because it was something easy that could easily be associated with the creatures that we have and the monsters that we have in that film. I feel like it gave them license and it gave them permission to be able to utilize some of the things in there to still make it palatable for kids. Because if they didn't use that element of Halloween, I feel like it would have been a hard sell of having all those gruesome characters that we have in there. Because like I said, like it was amazing that they got away with some of the stuff that they have and the things that they kind of touch on in that film, and yet still have it under the guise of a kid's film. But go ahead, you're number 2, sir.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. Number 2. We won't forget about you. Home Alone, ladies and gentlemen, a classic film. It's an it's a live action cartoon. It's a live action cartoon. I showed my son this movie the other day. He was telling me, I don't want to watch this movie. I want to watch some cartoons. And he was watching it a little bit. Then he started to see that they left Kevin at home. And he was like, oh, they left Kevin at home? Oh, what's going to happen? Then he saw Kevin was living his own life, watching all the movies he wants to watch. Because, when you're a little kid, there's a lot of movies you're not supposed to be watching. And your parents tell you to turn it off, but you still be wanting to watch it. And then he started to get the Wet Bandits. Classic. some of the best like slapstick comedy ever. And then the fact that they had Joe Pesci playing this character, Joe Pesci was like when this came out, and I think he did this, then he did Goodfellas, then I think he might have done My Cousin Vinny, but Joe Pesci was on fire at this point in the 90s. Like everything he touched was gold. He was in Casino right after this. Like everything he touched was gold. I'm sure this broke box office records because, like, it's just crazy. They were just selling everything from this movie. So I can't say enough about Home Alone. You've said bad things about the last two movies I've had. There's no way you're saying anything bad about this movie. I just want everyone to know that this is the second best Halloween Christmas movie ever, and there's no arguing it. I don't think that, maybe you could put Christmas Story in there, but we're not that old. I don't feel like we put Christmas Story in there. I think you might have Christmas Story, but I'm not that old. Just before I turn it over to you, my honorable mention is Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad.
That's a good one. That's a good
Oh
one.
my God! It talks about something that isn't often talked about in Christmas movies. Is the gross capitalism of the holiday.
I'm kind of mad at that one. You're right. Go ahead.
And the sheer volume of things that people will do, and it's also a picture in a time in the world that doesn't exist anymore since we've had online shopping take over everything. We don't have the thing where you could punch somebody's grandma for a Cabbage Patch doll anymore, because it used to be a thing. People used to go out and buy things, and if they couldn't get what they wanted, they would steal them from other people, and that's just how we would deal with it. And it's just, Sinbad in that movie was amazing. Arnold in that movie was amazing. I just, Jingle All the Way, great honorable mention. I wish I would have put it on there, but I feel like I had too much comedy stuff. But Jingle All the Way is just chef's kiss. All right, now for you, Brandon, number 2.
Fair enough. So guess what? Sir? My number 2.
You got Home Alone. Is Home Alone.
Is none other than Home Alone.
Yeah, of course. Because it's the number 2. It's so good.
So I don't know if there's much else to say here. Of course, Macaulay Culkin. Shout out to Macaulay Culkin, who recently got his. I think we were talking about on the show a couple of episodes ago of him finally getting his star on the Walk of Fame. Just that concept of like a kid's fantasy of being able to do whatever they want and of course, being able to be the man of their house and to take care of the bad guys and may try to come into your neighborhood and rob the place. And I mean, everything that you touched on, I agree with. What we're talking about, Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern. As I said, I already talked about Macaulay Culkin. You have the other elements there with the parents with John Hurt and Catherine O'Hara, of course. I mean, man, like incredible cast that we're talking about there.
Right, before you move on.
Yes.
What do you think that Kevin's dad's job was? Because Kevin's dad flew his entire family to France on the most expensive day of the year. And he was flying first class with him and his wife. And I think his brother and them,
so
the house was huge. I think he was selling that nose candy. I don't know what he was doing.
Wow.
He wasn't making no regular money.
This one took a turn. So he
wasn't making no regular money.
He couldn't be like a chief, a COO, or he had. Wow.
No. He probably worked for a waste management company. That's what he probably did.
Wow.
He was probably in construction.
If you think about it though, like even though they had that huge place, they didn't have that place to themselves. Like they had other relatives. If I recall, they were.
No, those people didn't live there. Those people were visiting.
Let me think. Oh, you're right.
Remember, Kevin was like, I don't want to sleep in the bed with him. He pees in the bed. I don't want to sleep in the bed with somebody that pees.
Crazy. Oh,
that was their house.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
11 children, like 12 adults. That's crazy. That man had money. He flew his whole family to France. That's not CFO money. That's like money. But yeah, go on.
Wow. But yeah, no, just the diabolical things and how mischievous that character of Kevin McAllister that Macaulay Culkin brought to that role. It's weird to think of someone else potentially playing that role because it felt, a lot of times you have those roles that are just, like you said, chef's kiss is just something that is perfectly fit for that person.
Yeah.
And it's funny too because you have those times where you're like, they're a terrific actor, but they're like completely miscasting this role. They shouldn't have done this role, and that's not the case. With this role, whether we're talking about Macaulay Culkin as Kevin McAllister, if we're talking about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, we're talking about Patrick Stewart as Professor X. What is it? Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Like they're just roles that the marriage of actor and character are perfect. A perfect synergy. Between those things, and that's definitely what you had here. And it's the original. So like it was hard not to, and this may give a hint on what I have next. It was hard to pick this between my number one because it's neck and neck, and maybe based on the time of day, they might switch positions, but at
Oh
least
no. The number one is always going to be the number one. I'm not
it's
like
right
Home Alone is great, but it's not the number one. We know what the number one is. But do your honorable mention. Do your honorable mention.
honorable mention is actually Batman Returns.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's a good Christmas
I
movie.
love, and I had to throw a superhero one in there. So, like, don't get me wrong, the first Batman is awesome. Uh, but if we're talking about the second Batman, even though I do hold the first Batman at a higher degree than the second one, I still feel like the second one is slightly below the first one. You still can't go wrong with the performances by Danny DeVito, performances by Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman and as Penguin, respectively. Christopher Walken,
Oh yeah.
and I mean, of course, Michael Keaton is Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is my Batman. I'm sorry, I don't care if anyone else, feels differently, but like
That's my Batman.
that was a Batman I grew up with. So he's my Batman. Under the whole guise of the Christmas holiday happening in Gotham and how they used that aesthetic with that holiday happening, with how the story played out and how it shaped the story, was pretty cool. And again, like I said, I had to pick a superhero film as well, but it's not in my top five, but it is a film that I do enjoy quite a lot. And it is a film like when it's Christmas time that I enjoy watching. All right, so I will punt it over to you, sir. What is your number one? Which I'm feeling is a lot of people's number ones. A lot of people
It's
want to.
everyone's number one. Even though the main actor in this movie recently said that it was not a Christmas movie. We know that man's a liar and he don't know what he's talking about. I don't mean to say that about him because he's got things going on with himself, but we just know this is a Christmas movie.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
The movie starts with a Christmas song. It ends with a Christmas song. They say Christmas quotes. They add a Christmas. There's a tree. Everything. He puts a Santa hat on somebody at some point. Um, it's none other than Die Hard. It's got to be Die Hard. We know Die Hard is the best Christmas movie. It launched the careers of Bruce Willis. It springboarded what's his name? Not Carl Winslow. What's his real name? Yeah, but it springboarded him into doing Family Matters, which is a mega hit. Alan Rickman was crazy in this movie as Hans. Just so many quotables, and then they've remade this movie so many times as different other movies because they've made like Speed, which was Die Hard on a boat. I mean, on a bus, and then like Die Hard in Space um is like Fifth Element. There's so many Die Hard movies and clones that have come about since this movie. It's just like it reinvented action heroes in a different kind of way. Like especially after the '80s, because this came at the end of the '80s. Bruce Willis wasn't like a weightlifter or anything, so it like kind of brought it back to the everyman aspect of action movies instead of like Superman like Arnold and Sylvester Stallone,
Yeah.
but just crazy. So many quotables, so many great scenes. All the shooting and the pew pews was just great. I just love all the pew
I
pews.
gotta remember that. All the shooting in the pew pews.
Oh my God, it was lots of pew pews going on. Like I can't show my son this movie yet because he'll like imitate and do all that stuff. But when he gets about 10, we're gonna watch this one, and I'll be like, "Look, man, this is gonna be a good one." But Die Hard, I know you've got it too. We all know what it is. So go ahead and you do your thing.
Is that right? Is that my number one, sir?
It has to be your number one. There's no way that this is not your number one movie.
So,
You've got Christmas Story or something, or like A Wonderful Life.
I have something blasphemous for you, but I have my.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Number one is Home Alone 2.
Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe this. Put Die Hard on this list. I can't believe this.
I know, with the upset.
Oh, I for sure thought when you said we had matching ones, it was Die Hard.
Oh, no. We already passed our matching one, Chief, and that was none other than. So, as I said, like I said, for a lot of people, they're like, what, huh? Blasphemy. So, let me explain. As I said, I already gave a hint of this with my number two, and talking about how difficult it is to choose between this one and the first one. Depending on my mood, sometimes I feel, the first one is my number one just by virtue of it being the original, setting that tone. But based on the feeling today, number two is my number one, and the reason being is that it has all of those same qualities as the first film. However, it's on a much grander scale. Outside of just being in Kevin's neighborhood and a lot of things taking place in his home, we have the whole landscape of New York to deal with. And I know while a lot of people will arguably say, yeah, but like at least in terms of like that final confrontation is still brought back to a house. Yeah, that is true. But you still also have the element of what transpires at the hotel and the cast of characters that you have at that hotel. So similar to what I was talking about before of thinking of all of those prerequisites of what determined what made my list and what didn't. Talking about it being a quintessential holiday film, having all the feels, so to speak, of having elements of Christmas, of having, just like the first film, having a theme that you regularly can casually recognize being specific to a specific film. That like all of that you recognize immediately with Home Alone. And then just thinking of just like the cast of characters that you have with this film. I mean, of course you have the returning cast coming back, right? You have Macaulay Culkin, you have Daniel Stern, you have Joe Pesci, who you see in the picture here. But we also have Tim Curry. We have gosh, like
that scary bird lady.
We had and I'll actually give the name. Her name is Brenda Fricker. But we also have Rob Schneider. A lot of people forget about that. Like you have all of this. You have an all-star cast of like all of these folks that play parts as supporting characters and are peppered throughout this film to bring their own element to this film. So
don't forget the future president.
Oh right, gosh, yeah.
This movie doesn't get made without Mr. President, and we could argue that
he's in there too. Better for worse, he's in there too. But I'm just saying, like, the fact that you can still have that same feeling. A good sequel allows you to still have stuff that you recognize, but still brings things to a larger scale and gives you additional things to love. And so when you're talking about all of those actors that I talked about before, with Curry, with Schneider, with Fricker, with in addition to the original cast that you already have, and to have it in a larger landscape, to expand that landscape of it being in a city versus just being in a neighborhood, and and all those, oh, and I didn't even get into Eddie Bracken, like, who was at the the toy store. Like, it's just so many parts of that to love and to remember years and years later. And it not only functions, like I said, as a good holiday film, it functions as a good sequel. A lot of times, you have sequels that are not as good as their original. And this doesn't fall into that list for me as a sequel that doesn't improve or is better than its original. Now, getting to Die Hard. I love Die Hard.
How dare you, ladies and gentlemen? He's not a real man. You're not a real man. You picked 2 Home Alone movies. I can't believe
it. And I get into this
argument. 2 Home Alone movies instead of Die Hard.
I get into this argument with other friends of mine.
Shame.
They probably they agree with you, and they're like, blasphemy, that needs to be number 1. Die Hard is not a Christmas movie for me.
How is Die Hard not a Christmas movie?
Not a Christmas movie for me.
Why? So tell me this. Is he not flying somewhere to be with his family for Christmas?
Yeah, but like, if we're talking about,
that's one.
I'm saying, if we're talking about the aesthetic of it being, of it having those elements of Christmas, if we're talking about that, and intrinsically talking about Christmas, like, I don't know, like, for me,
the song's a Christmas song.
Argument out of the way, but just personally for me, I don't feel like there's enough there. And I love the movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
This is terrible, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot believe this. Brandon's going to sit up here and tie himself into knots. This is what Warriors fans do, ladies and gentlemen. They say ridiculous things about things that everyone else knows is true. You know, the best Christmas movie is Die Hard. Not only is Die Hard a Christmas movie, it's the best one. He saved Christmas. He saved that whole tower from terrorists on Christmas.
I guess American Psycho is a Christmas movie now too, folks.
No, American Psycho's not a Christmas movie.
If we're going by the rules of Die Hard, then we need
American Psycho's not a Christmas movie. It takes place during the winter. But this is actually a Christmas movie. He saves Christmas. And everything is cyclical in the movie, where he's starting to do things, and he's like, "Oh man, it's Christmas," you know. He even says it. He says, "Come on, it'll be a fun time. Come to Christmas." Da da da. Then there's scenes.
On my top, it's not a holiday movie.
That's crazy.
I love Die Hard. I absolutely love Die Hard.
That's crazy. That's crazy. How dare you, Brandon?
Of all the cool things and parts, elements of it to enjoy, it's just not a holiday movie.
They was breaking into a bank in this movie. They was trying to steal all the money on Christmas because they was like, hey, these people at a Christmas party, they were having a Christmas party. They were doing office politics in the Christmas parties. People were sleeping with each other, which adults do at Christmas parties in their offices, like pigs. But I don't believe this. Oh, everything had on Christmas lights. It's just... Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like I've never heard such a thing before in my days. I've never heard a thing where
Spillman's mind, ladies and gentlemen, I've blown his mind.
What kind of we do a action movie podcast essentially? How is an action movie not your number 1? This is crazy.
And love
Batman. You picked Batman over Die Hard. I love Batman too, but not Batman over Die Hard.
Iconic movie. Iconic movie. Just not top 5.
He got 2 Home Alone movies and no Die Hard. He got a Muppet movie. I can't believe this. I'm really, you've been poo-pooing my list. Your list, there's no redeeming this list now that you've got 2 Home Alones on here. I want the people to write in and tell us how you really feel about this. Because he put 2 Home Alone movies.
By all means.
Unironically.
Comments, by all means.
Unironically. And then he was talking like he was going to do the Die Hard thing like I was going to do. Because he said, I go back and forth from 1 and 2. Because I get how Home Alone is more of a Christmassy type thing because it's got children and stuff involved. And there's like that whole thing. And they're actually stealing Christmas. But it's the same kind of thing. Both of these movies take place with robberies. Both of them are robberies.
Well, here's the thing. I'm sure, which is why this is always interesting how subjective this is. I'm sure on this list, a lot of people are going to be like, none of y'all movies are in our top 5. Because I'm sure neither one of us, I noticed, didn't put The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And don't get me wrong, I love The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. It's just not my top 5. Same thing goes for Frosty the Snowman. I'm sure people want to put that film on there. I like that film too. It's a classic movie, but also not my top 5. The same thing with
It's a Wonderful Life, maybe.
It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, like all of those. People want to probably put as their top 5. They're like, what are you nuts? Like, how is that not in your top 5? Again, folks, this is a top 5, not a top 10. So there are some films that are.
Yours is a top 4.5. I feel like Home Alone and Home Alone 2 are just the same movie.
Wow.
I can't believe this. Like, you trying to tell me my Friday pick was bad, and you picked 2 of the same movies.
Hey.
Hey.
I didn't say it was bad. I just said it's just not my favorite Friday. That's all.
I just don't understand this. 2 Home Alones. I feel like you picked one or the other. You could pick it Lost in New York, or you pick the OG. But
right.
Just like,
right,
bruh. Like, and this movie specifically was a money grab. This movie specifically was a money grab because they were selling stuff with this movie, like that remote. Did you have the walkie-talkie as a child?
No, I didn't.
My brother had the walkie-talkie. I didn't want the walkie-talkie because the antics were too anticky for me. Because I was a big brother, I had to set a good example to my little brother. But no, you got 2 Home Alones. I'm gonna bring this up next time we should record an episode. I'm gonna remind the people.
By all means.
Brandon picked 2 Home Alone movies.
By all means.
But
But on that note, folks.
2 Home Alones.
Man. That will make our top 5, and that will be our show today.
Batman and 2 Home Alones. Man. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see. We'll talk about it. We'll get together as a people and talk about it. Maybe we can get Brandon some help. But 2 Home Alones is just—it's the same movie twice, man. You got to give the people a better one than that. You got to come back next week and I don't know. I mean, they're both classics, so I guess you got it.
So
2 Home Alones.
I gave my reasons, but put that out of the way. As always, I will put it over to you, Spillman. Can you tell folks where they can find you?
All right, yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Truly Spill. I have only 1 Home Alone on that platform. I'm not going to have 2 Home Alones for you guys. It's not going to be any kind of flammery like Brandon's up to. Please like and subscribe and give us 5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars. Yep. Thanks. I think I'm trying to get I don't know how we did it last week, guys, but I had an effect. I'm trying to see if we can get it back. But back to you, Brandon.
All right, sir. So again, I want to thank Spillman for joining me and giving his top 5 holiday films.
Die Hard.
So much.
I can't believe this, ladies and gentlemen. No Die Hard.
But you can find me on X at Brandon Choi ENT and on Instagram at Brandon Choi _ENT. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there. We're not going to do a show next week with it being the holiday, so be on the lookout for us to have a bye next week, but we will be back the week following as we get closer to New Year's. And we could talk about perhaps our top films of 2023.
That's right. We could talk about the top films. but he's probably going to have a sequel in there somehow. It's going to be two movies that was a sequel of each other. They didn't have no sequels come out. I'm disgusted, ladies and gentlemen. I really thought you was going to be I thought we were friends, man. We were friends. I thought we were going to be friends. And we were going to put Die Hard together. It was going to be 1-2. We had the same 1-2. But then,
wow, it got that deep. Wow.
No, Die Hard.
Uh,
He tells him to shoot the glass because he don't have no shoes on in the movie. And then he got to run on the glass with the shoes.
I have blown Spillman's mind, ladies and gentlemen. So
Holy Gennaro. Holy Gennaro, man.
On that note, we will see you later, folks. Till next time.
I can't believe this. I'm just, ladies and gentlemen.